Well, hello everybody and welcome to another one of our leadership training videos. As you know by now, in these videos I share with you various aspects of leadership which I have used over my career and my life. Today's topic is going to be about something which I think is really important but very often forgotten by leaders, because we're always concerned about our teams, how things are going, and productivity and all those kind of things, which are really important in leadership. But what are the leadership traits, qualities and skills that you actually need to be a better leader or a more successful leader? And that's what I really want to focus on. So today we're going to talk about a topic which is effectively how to deal with your boss, how to create an environment within which your boss and you connect, you discuss, you understand each other. And I'm just going to take you through a few of the processes that I have used that have been really successful for me. And I hope that, of course, they'll be successful for you. Now, if you're not familiar, my name is Chris Igwe. I have over 35 years experience leading, training and developing teams right across Europe, Middle East and Africa. And I've lived in 5 different countries. So a lot of what I share with you is really essentially what I have picked up, learned, developed over the many years that I've been in a leadership position. Now, if you're not familiar, please feel free to like, comment and share. And of course, leave me your thoughts as well. Always interesting to hear what you think in relation to the various ideas that we share. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you know what other videos are available. So with that, stage set, let's start off with this then. So how do you establish excellent, so not just good, but excellent relations and relationships with your boss? Whoever he or she is, whatever role you have. Remember, this is for those who are leaders, developing. You may be CEO already, in which case you may say, well, I don't have a boss because I'm the CEO, I'm the chairman. Well, you actually do, because you've got shareholders. You've got others who may be your financial partners. Maybe when you started the business, they came in as shareholders. No matter how small they are, there is always in the whole system some sort of a boss. But let's talk about maybe what we're more familiar with, which is, let's say you are in a senior leadership position. You run a department, a team, a business, and you report into, let's say, a CEO or managing director. The first and most important things that you have to do are the foundational elements. So when I talk about foundation, what I mean is I've taken 4. There are many, so let's not get carried away. Inevitably, I can't in a few minutes share with you all the skills and qualities that you need, but you have to set a foundation. That's the first and most important priority. So for me, these are the ones that I think matter most. There are many other components of that, and maybe you have your own ideas and thoughts as well. But first of all, mutual trust. And I've put both words in, mutual and trust. Trust is very important. We know that if we don't trust each other as human beings, we can't develop. In the same way, it's got to be mutual, which means it's got to go in both directions. It's got to be reciprocal. So your boss has to trust you in the same way as you trust him or her. So mutual trust is really important. You have to have mutual respect as well. And respect is so, so important in anything that we do, but especially as leaders. You need to respect not only your seniors or your bosses, but you also need to respect your team. So mutual respect, again, it goes both ways. The other important thing is dialogue. And what I mean by dialogue? Well, it's not just you speak to him or her or him speak to you. It's the fact that there is this communication that goes backwards and forwards, which we talk about here. But here it's more about conversation. It's about, like, you might meet in the corridor, you have a quick conversation. You get to know each other through that process. A dialogue creates a framework for listening, understanding and talking. And of course, communication, which I've put here, which is so critical in anything that we do. We've got to be able to communicate. And I'll come on to a little bit of how you might want to consider that later on. But communication, which could be verbal, as it could be written, as well as it could be non-verbal, okay? Communication is all forms. It's not just what you say, it's what you don't say. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. It's about the words you use, the moments you use those words, the timing, the cadence. Communication is so very important. So those are the foundational elements, which I think for me are the most important ones that help you build on to this next stage, which is you have to set up boundaries. In my opinion, boundaries not only help you to frame the conversation and the relationship, but they also tell both parties what the limitations are. What is acceptable, what is not acceptable. When you're out of order, when they're out of order as well. I mean, I've challenged my own bosses, and I'd encourage you to do the same, obviously with respect and trust. But it's okay to define what those boundaries are and how they would work. So those boundaries are, again, I've taken a few, time related. So time, first of all, is, for example, when do you want to meet your boss? What time of day, what time of month, what time of week? What's the frequency? Are you going to be meeting every week, every 2 weeks, every month, every quarter? All of those are okay. And by the way, time and frequency, it's okay to say, okay, let's meet every 2 weeks, as I did with my bosses. That was kind of my rhythm. So I didn't want to meet every week because I don't think there's enough to say each week. And if we have the dialogue and communication, if I have an issue, I can talk to him or her at any stage. So my frequency, if you like, was every 2 weeks, I'd meet with my boss. We'd set up the time. Normally we had them scheduled out in the calendar anyway. But then in between those meetings, there would be a quarterly meeting that has been set up. So every quarter we'd get together, we'd review the whole process, what's going on and what isn't. So really important to define that with your boss. What's the scope of your communication with him or her? In terms of reports, for example, does he or she want a big long report, or do you set a template, which I would encourage you to do actually? Set up a template which says, these are the points that I'm going to discuss. Performance, maybe in terms of numbers, maybe in terms of new clients, maybe in terms of sales, maybe in terms of the team, maybe some key members of the team. Who are they? What's going on? What are the projects you're working on? How are they going? So define what that is. What's the scope? And then how do they get included in the report? And I would encourage you to make the reports as simple, especially if they're every 2 weeks. Maybe if they're monthly or quarterly, it's a bit more consistent, a bit more content to it. But the reports, remember, your boss is busy. He or she does not want to read 10 pages. So that comes back to the boundary. What is it that you want to have? What do they need to know that allows you to define each of these things? And then one of the other really, really important points is, and people forget this so often, your boss, he or she, is a human being, inevitably. They have likes and they have dislikes. There are things that will really irritate them, and there are things that they will really love, especially if you anticipate them and you do them yourself or prepare them or plan them or whatever. So it's any of those things. But the point is, find out absolutely initially what are their likes and dislikes. This may seem obvious, but I don't know of many people who actually do it. But ask them the question. What do they like? What do they dislike in terms of a direct report? Don't forget to ask your peers. Your peers are essentially, again, if you imagine it's a CEO or chairman or whatever, and you're somewhere in here as managing director, head of department, whatever. He will have other direct reports. Ask them how they relate to him, how they deal with him. Obviously, you've got to be careful how you ask it, because he might hear about it or she might hear about it, and it's just got to be done with sensitivity. But ask the peers what his or her likes or dislikes are. Another easily forgotten one is ask the PA, and that's the one I go to instinctively. I might ask the peers, but I don't necessarily. I would ask them directly. I might ask the peers just from what I see and what I hear, but I definitely ask the personal assistant or the executive assistant of the CEO or my boss, because they are the ones who live day in, day out with the person. They are also, like anybody in that role and position, they're the gatekeepers. So they're the ones who are going to help you get to him or her. So it's important to ask them, what does he or she like? What are the things that we shouldn't do or I shouldn't do? What time should I not contact him or her? And of course, use your intuition. Because intuition, which is a deep topic and a deep conversation, but intuition is simplistically, it's about your gut, your feeling, So you may think, oh, I've got a really important thing I want to talk to my boss about. Is now the right time to do it? Is this the right day or the right moment? And something may tell you, Chris, no, it isn't. It's not the right time for whatever reason. Maybe he or she's just come back from a major board meeting somewhere else or a big travel schedule. You're not going to suddenly say, I've got to go and talk about my topic, which is so important. You wait and find the right time. So use your intuition to understand what's going on, not just in his or her world, but in the business overall. Again, if the business is struggling or is challenged, or there is a big pitch or a big moment in the company's history, it may not be the best time to talk to your boss. But it's so important, in summary, to have a great relationship with your boss. I'll give you a quick example, because this is all stuff that I've used before, so I'm not telling you anything that is necessarily rocket science, but you develop it in your own way. You find a way that makes it work for you. But when I was leaving, I put in my resignation. I was a board member in a company, large company, and the CEO made it very clear. He said, Chris, I'm unhappy that you're leaving, but I wish you all the very best. And just so you know, you're not getting a leaving party. I don't do leaving parties. I just say goodbye, that's it, you're gone. That was fine, that's okay, I could live with that. And he was a pretty tough guy, so we had our moments of tension, but we knew where we stood with each other and had a mutual respect and a trust. And lo and behold, I was about to leave, and on the day I was leaving, he said, oh, by the way, on Saturday, you're expected at my home, the rest of the board will be there, and we're going to have a party. And I was so shocked, I was so surprised. He said, and because I'd seen board members come and go, but obviously I wasn't privy to the conversations he had with them, but I knew specifically that there was a case of he wouldn't be taken into supporting them, giving them any goodbye or anything like that. It was just like, you're gone, finished. So I was really surprised, but delighted as well, because what it demonstrated to me is that I had created a relationship where I was the first and indeed the only one that he did that with. So I was very humbled and honored. Of course, I was the one that they made most fun of during the party that we had. So that was kind of fun. It was really good to do. But it was really nice to have that, saying I had achieved something that I guess the others hadn't achieved. But it's not about comparison. It's about what works, and that really helped. And the other one, very quickly, different company, a board meeting, and the CEO said to the board, he was very unhappy. He was very unhappy about the way business was going. And he said, listen, I just want you guys to know you've got to shape up, improve. I'm not happy with where we are. There's only one person in this room who is actually pulling his weight. And to my delight, it was me. But at the same time, the rest of the board, I was exposed to the rest of the board. And they said, well, it's Chris, he said. Now, he didn't see me a lot. And that's why it's important to understand the frequency of when you meet. I traveled a lot, he traveled a lot. We very rarely met in the office, but I was in constant communication with him if anything was happening and going on. So he knew that I was working my socks off to run my department, my team across Europe in the way that I had expected and planned. So he knew that. So he didn't have to physically see me all the time. So be careful. It's not about communication on a constant basis when you're in the office, going and saying hi, shaking hands or whatever. It's about knowing and trusting that your relationship is absolutely clear. You've set the boundaries, you have the knowledge of what each other is prepared to accept, and at the same time, you'll adapt it where necessary. So this all works, and I look forward to you being able to use it, develop it in your own business. And please feel free to share, comment, like, and of course, subscribe to the channel and hear more about the other videos on leadership training. Thank you.